how do people spend money? Because if you try and talk to everyone, you're talking to no one. So that helps us understand what their behavior is, because if we can understand their behavior in the past, it's a good indication of what their behavior is going to be in the future. Play the ad and then we can sort of break it down.
Look at your man, now back to me. Now back at your man, now back to me.
What's the difference between them if they both had the same message? Created and delivered in such a way that's so different to what you're used to seeing, and not your typical size zero model. Point in the journey, and we speak to him differently. You see how creating this profile of that ideal customer that we want can help us directly talk specifically to that person. If you're selling something, it always comes down to buying habit, and that's how you can create content that speaks directly to your target audience.
Ooh.
All right, Lana Ray, welcome. Another episode in front of the cameras. Let's try and get this done then. So audience segmentation is what we're going to be looking at. Before we dive into it and try and dissect it, what do you already know about audience segmentation?
It's about dividing your customers into customer profiles. So like smaller groups depending on their demographic.
Yeah, that's
the
part of it.
demographics.
So you're finding your audience and you're putting them into little groups and you're looking for certain people. Why does this help? Why is this important in content and why is this important in marketing?
It helps us to identify what types of content need to be put out to different types of people in order for them to interact with it.
That's right. Yeah. And in the marketing side of things, why is it important to know exactly who you're marketing to?
So that we're not essentially wasting our time.
Yeah. Not wasting our time and money talking to people that aren't interested. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where relevance becomes more important than reach. So you can reach 1 million people, but if they're not interested in what you're talking about, it doesn't benefit you and you're wasting time and money trying to talk to them. Or you can create relevant content and market that to people that are interested and only need 1,000 people and have great interactions and ultimately be able to sell your services and products. Yeah. So you have to just remember relevance beats reach every time. Okay. So let's go into them. Before we break down how we can divide groups of people, let's go into examples of when businesses has done this really well and really spoke to the audience. And do you agree that just because two people are interested in the same thing, that you should talk to them the same way?
Well, not really.
Exactly. So the same way you talk to your grandma is different to how you talk to your school friends, right?
Right.
What's different?
Well, humour, I think, is the first thing my mind went to. Would be different. And obviously your level of politeness. I'm sure you can joke around more with your friends. Whereas you have to be, there's a certain level of respect that you have with elders.
Mm-hmm.
How you talk as well.
So you have things like your tone of voice, language, even the things that you might choose to discuss are slightly different. Yeah. The depth that you might go into about when you went to a party last night with your grandma is a difference to how you would go into it with your school friends, right? You talk about different sections of that. And that's how brands interact and how they can either do this very well and create an audience, or sometimes they can do this very badly and it causes backlash. So before we go into segmentation and what that actually looks like and how we break people into different groups, let's look at a couple examples of brands that have used a tone of voice and decided to home in and speak to a specific person in order to sell a product, right? So I'll play the ad and then we can sort of break it down. I can just get your initial reaction on it and then we can work out who they're actually talking to and why. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're on a boat with the man your man could smell like. What's in your hand? Back at me. I have it. It's an oyster with 2 tickets to that thing you love. Look again. The tickets are now diamonds. Anything is possible when your man smells like Old Spice and not a lady. I'm on a horse.
What just happened?
Firstly, what were they selling?
Soap.
Soap?
Like body wash or something.
Yeah, right. Old Spice, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Who were they talking to?
Wives or like girlfriends?
Girlfriends. And was the product for girls?
No,
Who's it for?
men.
Men. Why talk to the women?
Pause. Hold on. I don't even know. Like, that's really weird.
So think about it. I don't want to be stereotypical, but obviously they must have done research. Who goes shopping more?
Oh, okay. The women.
Okay. So why talk to the women?
Oh, because they'll be the ones that are buying the product.
Would you ever forget that advert now?
Probably not, no.
So they use a tone of voice, humor. They spoke to a specific audience in a silly way. When girlfriends and so forth are in the shop and they see Old Spice, they're going to be like, oh yeah, brand recognition, and put it in. And that advert done very well for them. All right. So let's look at another one by Apple. It's another old advert. And we can have a look at who they're talking to and why it worked. And this one also done quite well.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
All right. So who do you feel that was aimed at?
I'm not sure.
Who did you see on there?
Is this a trick question?
No?
Like the people that I saw?
Yeah. You saw like Albert Einstein,
Gandhi? Martin Luther King?
Martin Luther King. What do they all have in common?
They changed the world somehow.
Okay. So you talk about professionals and you talk about creatives that have these aspirations of creating something that changes the world. And through their advert, they're basically talking to those people that have those aspirations, saying, if you're this type of person, you use our product. The people that think outside of the box, that have these aspirations and want to achieve more. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And that advert done, another one that done very well for them and spoke to a specific audience. And then we saw a big split on professionals and creatives that would then go on just to use Apple products. Another campaign that done very well is the Dove campaign that over, what was the slogan? Talked about every woman being beautiful. And it would have women of all different shapes, sizes, color, ethnic backgrounds, and not your typical size 0 model. And it celebrated real beauty. Yeah, it ran a bunch of ads where they would have a model show up, sit in front of the camera, no makeup, no nothing, and then they would start putting the makeup on, and then the photos were taken and it was put into Photoshop, and then they'd start to manipulate her face, get rid of any blemishes, make her eyes bigger, and it was basically, I think the slogan at the end was along the lines of, no wonder we don't really know what natural beauty is, along those lines. later on. So I think that's back in like 2003, 2004, they started this natural beauty campaign, and it has gone on and served them well as a campaign, and they've come back to it again and again. So let's look at one now that hasn't done too well. It's a Pepsi campaign. So that advert didn't do too good for them. There was backlash over the fact that people were saying, what has Kendall Jenner got to do with the movements that were going on at that time, which they were trying to jump on the back of. People saying they were just trying to trivialize that movement that was happening. And there was a massive backlash. But it didn't do too good, unlike the other ones. And when you watch it, it doesn't feel like it connects. So we can see how you talk to people. And when, especially you get on anything political, it's a very touchy ground. Mm-hmm. So we have to be careful that, yes, you want to be relevant. You want to talk about relevant things, but you also need to be involved in the culture and understand it enough to be able to sort of have your say creatively while still selling a product. It's a very delicate ground that you tread on, right? Also, the way you say things sometimes matter more than what you say. So an example of that is, do you know who Biden Rustin is?
Who?
Biden Rustin. Never heard of him, yeah? Do you know who Martin Luther King is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
those two people both fought for the same thing. You know that I Have a Dream speech? Mm-hmm. That was organized, that whole rally was organized by Biden. And yet you don't know his name, but you know Martin Luther King. What's the difference between them if they both had the same message? Why, when I say Martin Luther King, what do you remember? What's the first thing that comes into your head?
The speech that he did.
Okay.
Yeah.
How they spoke, the delivery.
So they both had the same message and spoke in front of people.
Yeah. Martin Luther King done something different where he was able to reach people's hearts and minds. It was able to allow him to connect a lot better. And that's just an example of how just because you are saying something, how you say it as well and how you deliver it also matters just as important as what you're saying. If we're putting that into content, you could be saying all the right things, but how that comes across visually really matters on whether people actually pay attention and take it in, and if they will remember it. The same way we watch all of those adverts, and the one that you're probably going to remember in 2-3 months' time is going to be which one?
I'd rather not answer that.
It's going to be the Old Spice, yeah?
Yep, the half-naked guy.
It's created and delivered in such a way that's so different to what you're used to seeing all the time that it sticks in your mind. Yeah. So let's go into the next section then, where we literally break down how we can divide our groups of people and how we can target specific people, right?
Yep.
So that's broken into 4 sections: demographic, psychographic, behavioral, and situational. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's do the demographic first. What sort of categories do we have in there?
So age, gender, where you're from.
Yeah, income,
Yep.
those type of things. And then we go into psychographic. What sort of things are in there?
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, so psychographic are the things like their values, what they believe in, those type of things. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we've got who they are, where they're from, their beliefs, what they believe in, their lifestyle. And then we go into behavioral.
Is that like what they are going to be seeing it on? Like how they use...
Yeah, what they're clicking on, what they're watching.
Yeah.
So that helps us understand what their behavior is. Because if we can understand their behavior in the past, it's a good indication of what their behavior is going to be in the future, right? So if you've spent the last month clicking on anime and Arcane, and I have an anime book, I'm coming for you. That's one thing that I can use to target you, right?
Okay, yeah.
Past behavior will show what future behavior is going to be like. And that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one then is, where are they on their customer journey? Because that will determine when we enter the story in the different types of content. So if I'm doing content aimed at you and I'm selling a service or a product, how I introduce that product to you is a completely different experience to when you're ready to buy that product. And there's probably pieces of content that we need to create along the way before we get to there. So I'll be at first just high level, high impact, trying to get your attention, show you the product. And then by the time you get to that last stage, that is me just trying to prompt you, maybe an offer, something like that, to get you to buy. All right, so let's build a profile. So pick a fictional character, so to speak then. Any fictional character, go. And let's see if we can break them down.
Viktor.
So
this is really every single episode.
It's going to go back to Arcane, isn't it? So Viktor. I don't know much, but all right. Gender, male. Age, how old?
25 to 33.
25 to 33. Okay.
Throughout.
Location?
Well, he's lived both in the undercity.
Where is he living now?
Okay, Piltover.
Piltover.
Yeah.
Okay. And income? Is he wealthy?
I think he's like accounted for in the academy.
Okay.
This is
So he's in university.
Basically.
Okay. So he's in higher education at that age. All right. And what's his lifestyle habits and his beliefs?
Well, he wants to help people so that they are not like living in the same situation that he was.
Mm-hmm.
And make the world a better place, basically. Clashes with complex character.
Personality. Introvert, extrovert?
Introverted.
Okay. What's his behavior patterns like? Yeah, like if there was sort of social media, how do you think he would interact with that?
He probably wouldn't. He's a workaholic.
A workaholic, but I'm a workaholic.
Okay.
I love social. So I'm online. How to do this, how to do that type of videos,
Yeah.
how-to videos.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. So then now we know where he is online. So it'll probably be on YouTube or typing in how to. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So if we was a charity trying to reach him, we'd have to understand where he is in the user journey. Because at the beginning of season 1, he's in a different mental space to come to towards the end of season 2, right? He's almost a different person, the character arc. So in that character arc, you need to find out and work out, how does my product fit in when they're here? It's at the beginning where he's maybe this young, frustrated guy that has all these dreams of creating something better. That's a different point in the journey, and we speak to him differently than if we're halfway through season 2 and can't say I'm really know what's going on in that show, but I take it he's going to be frustrated, completely frustrated. The system's broken and he has to do something drastic to fix it. And that's a different type of messaging that we can use to target him. And using the profile that we built, we've worked out, okay, we know where he's going to be online. We've already discussed here on YouTube, looking for content, right?
Mm-hmm.
We already know the sort of the personality, his habits, the tone of voice that we can use to speak to him. And you see how creating this profile of that ideal customer that we want can help us directly talk specifically to that person. Because if you try and talk to everyone online, you're talking to no one. People are just going to scroll past because they can't connect. So when you create content, it's best that you be very specific, because if you can find one person that really is interested in what you have to say, guaranteed there's a handful more. And now you've got a little group. And out of that little group, they'll find others. Saying birds of a feather flock together. The idea is you're trying to speak specifically to one person. So when you create content, you're not thinking, oh, I'm talking to this type of person. And no, just write that profile like you're speaking to one person. And that person is your ideal customer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The person that you absolutely want. And if you've got that one person on board, you'll be happy. And if you can create content like that and you can market like that, then you're going to be winning all the time.
Uno reverse card. Can you give an example for when you've done this?
Yeah, we do this all the time when we sell our services, for example. So if you go to our hotel and restaurant page, we're speaking to a specific person. So when that copy is written, when that content's made, it's made with marketing managers in mind. And even to go further than that, female marketing managers, because the majority of marketing managers in that industry tend to be females. So we sort of home in and we create that content, and we talk to a specific person when we're writing it in our heads. For me, that's one person, and I'm just writing that content just for that one person. And then obviously it's relevant to more, but the more you can stay targeted, the better. And it's the same with the content that we do in the charity space. When we create it, it's designed to speak to the marketing managers, because those are the ones normally bring us on board to help. So we need to be relatable and talk to their needs. So making sure that we understand what those problems are allows us to make a connection. So when they're watching our content or reading through our website, it connects. They're like, yeah, I'm having that problem. I need to overcome that. I need a solution for that. And subconsciously, you're showing them that you understand what they're going through and you can help them get over it. And because you've worked in that space and you've overcome enough of those problems, you can, and you know what they need, and you can use your experience and really home in on solving particular problems for them. And that's how you can create content that speaks directly to your target audience, right? I understand that if your business or your service or your product has multiple profiles, you need to write them all out, and speak to them individually. So the way Nike speaks to its athletes is a different way than how they speak to their sneakerheads, the people that obsessed with collectibles and waking up early, lining up to get the most rarest trainers. Yeah, same product, but the way they talk to them is very different. Okay, moving on then to buying types. So how do people spend money? And this is important because now we know who we're talking to and we know the messaging that we have to use to get them interested. But if you're selling something, it always comes down to buying habits, right? So there's 3 different types of buyer in my mind, yeah? You have your tightwads, you have your big spenders, and you have your unconvinced. So your tightwads, it's painful for them to spend money. They hate spending money, right? And they and ah, and they really don't want to spend money. Your big spenders love spending money and they don't need convincing. They just want to spend their money, right? And then you're unconvinced, people that believe no matter what you're selling, it's a scam. It's not going to work for them. So then how do we talk to these 3 types? So your tightwads then. We have to show them the value because that's what they care about. They want to see, am I getting value for money? If I have to part with my money, you have to convince me that I'm getting the best deal ever. And that plays into our content. Yeah, the type of content that we create has to lead with value. So what type of content do you think that would be?
Like how it's improved people's lives.
Where's it going to take them? So you've got this problem, but this is where it's going to take you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also they're looking for deals and things like that.
Yep.
So you could show them how much they're losing out if they decide not to get this product. Yeah. And you can create the value there that actually is going to cost you more sitting on the sidelines. All right. So now we go into big spenders.
It don't matter.
These type of people are emotionally driven to buy. They just have to want it. So you have to create desire. Yeah. So you see this a lot in sort of luxury products. Creating desire and want is what motivates this type of buyer. So as long as you can do that, you haven't really got to convince them with like testimonials or anything like that because they just need to want it. So being able to create that desire, and you can see this in what Apple do and what luxury products do, is they create a celebrity around their product. So there was Apple adverts that were going out that would show videos, or it would just be photos of people in the industry. So whether that's the music industry or the film industry or just whatever industry it's in, it would show the people at the top of their game with an Apple. And that was enough to create desire, right? So for some customers, that's enough. They're like, oh, that producer uses Mac and that creative uses a Mac in their studio. Yeah, I need a Mac. It's just the only way to go. And they create that desire and that sells. Okay. Then you have the unconvinced. So what type of content do you need to create for the unconvinced?
Isn't it like a bit similar to the first one, like practicality of your products.
Yeah. So this one, where that one was value driven, like how much you're going to save, how much time you're going to save. This is the value of our product. They just don't believe it's going to work. So they might hear you saying, oh yeah, it's going to save me time, it's going to save me money, but it's just not going to work for me. So how do you talk to that person and create that type of content? And you touched on it.
Yeah, so like showing people like them and how that product has helped them.
Exactly. So identify first who they are and talk directly to their problems to show that you understand them. Hey, I know you're going through this. You probably feel like this and you've had this going on for the last couple months. And every time you try and do A, B happens. Yeah. And they're like, okay, all right, cool. That's exactly what I'm going through. You understand. And then you say, Mr. John Smith was exactly the same way. And now this is what he's doing. Yeah. And then review after review of the testimonial, and that social proof that this is going to work, right? And you probably need them in a nurture sequence where that takes a lot of time or a longer amount of time, yeah. But the more you can speak directly to them till they feel like, hey, they're talking to me, then the more likely you are to convince them and convert them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to buying type, it's not just who your audience are, it's how they choose. So you can do your user profile and you can break down who they are, but unless you know how they choose and how they buy, you're going to have trouble connecting the two. But when you know these things, it'll make it so much easier, not only to market to them, but to create content and to come up with content ideas. Because most people struggle, right? What content I'm going to create? And they might do the user profile part, and that will help them narrow it down. But in order to get the results, they then need to think about the buy-in type as well. And most people are a combination of those things. Like there's some of my buying habits where I'm a tightwad or I'm unconvinced, yeah? And you have to do a lot to try and convince me. If it's a service or sometimes software, you got to convince me. I've got to feel like, is that really going to make it easier for me and my team? Yeah. Whereas camera equipment, you just need to show me it's new and shiny, and I'm parting with my money. And what you'll understand is people are different. They swing back and forth in terms of their buying types. But if you can create content around all three of those, then you're guaranteed that you're going to get some. Yeah?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So there's no need to long it out. Leave it there. Yeah.
Time to rewatch Arcane, mate.
Yeah, I will. Cool.
I didn't get into my toothpaste analogy.
Ooh.